Well,
Yeah.
sucks for you because I'm not doing it again. It's a lot for me to do a show more than once because I'm used to doing only one performance of something, then never again. But because I loved you all so much, I want to make sure everyone could see it, because I know you have such crazy schedules. But to see, I'm gonna do like a little atmosphere check using a little story, and then I'll talk to you again in a second. And I think this is being recorded, right?
Check.
Shh. Okay, good. I need it for my private collection. This loop is still going. My uncle had a gambling problem. That's not surprising. He had a lot of problems, but gambling was one of them. And one time he struck it big. Not big in a life-changing way, but big enough to potentially make a change in his life. So my aunt, the more practical one, hid the money from him. And when she hid it, she was able to make a plan to stretch it out a little bit, make a few investments, and they were finally able to live alone in the country. She would often invite us up for a summer, maybe, or maybe just a weekend, to visit her, because they were mostly alone and they loved our company. One summer I went with my little brother Jack, who was devoutly religious, and he snuck in a rosary, which was against the rules of my aunt's place, because she doesn't believe in God and she doesn't like religion. I think she saw him bring it in. She must have. Because later that night, we heard a gunshot. The window shook a little bit. And my brother woke up and he was scared. I figured it was my aunt, but I don't know what she was shooting at. Maybe a wolf. So we go outside. We ask what's wrong. My uncle's just sleeping through it. And she said they tried coming again. And she looks at my brother. And he's just clenching his rosary. And she said, I told you not to bring that. Because it brings them here. And then I'm looking around. And I'm like, bring what? And she says, the angels. They come around here and I have to shoot at them. I aim for their wings. I just want to be left alone. My brother's like, why are you shooting angels? My aunt's like, I don't want angels here. I don't believe in God. I don't want God here. And I just want a peace of mind. My brother says, but God is good. God is great. God is beautiful. And my aunt says, God's sleeping if he exists. And if he does exist, he better sleep somewhere else. Because if I see him, I'm shooting him. And my brother just starts crying. And my aunt goes to hold him and takes a rosary. And she looks at me. And she smiles a little bit. She says to my brother, you know that pillows you're sleeping on, those soft pillows, they're stuffed with angel feathers. And he just starts crying even more. My aunt's like a sadistic person. And sure enough, when I went back inside in the comforter, there were gold-tipped feathers. And in the morning, when my brother was still sleeping, she looked at me and she said, you know, I was joking, right? I don't aim for the wings. All right, so how's everyone doing? That's pretty good. I'm gonna ask some audience participation. Not much. Don't worry. This is not a requirement. This is purely elective. But at some point, I might go a little over because I get into the stories. And if like time's running out, if it gets like 5:55, if y'all could just say time's running out like 4 times, then I'll know to start wrapping it up. Also, just to get like more of a temperature check with you all, I'm gonna need you to make some sounds. All right. First, can you make the sounds of dogs? I like this audience a lot. Can you make the sound of wolves? Important distinction between the dog and the wolf, but we'll get into that. All right. Can you make the sound of the wind blowing through the branches? I feel it. I feel the seasons changing right now. Finally, can you make the sounds of bells?
Dong.
Can you make the sound a little louder?
Dong.
Can you make the sound just a bit louder? That's a terrifying sound. When I went to the fields, that's the sound that I heard, the sound of the bells. Because they wore it on collars around their neck. You see, when someone would try to escape from the fields, they would put the bells around their neck on a collar made of iron. And it would serve a dual purpose. It would serve the purpose of making sure that they knew that wherever they go, they could be heard. And they knew that if they wore it long enough, they'd go a little mad. That's the sound I heard when I approached the fields, when I moved through the crops that split like a sea of nerves, when I was in the dry heat coming from a sun as if a cigarette was put out in the sky. And in this field, they were growing cotton candy. Let me tell you something about the field. In my studies, I have discovered that the field is the perfect economic unit for the master and the house. Of course, the primary economic unit for this individual is the family that endlessly reproduces itself, reproduces him, reproduces his wealth. A unit of domestic capital. And by controlling another's family, well, we control their future. Now, another element of this field is it's perfectly controlled. You control the crops, you control their harvest. Like the crops, you control the animals, you control how they breed. Like the animals, you control the machines. And of course, if you happen to own individuals, enslaved people, then they, like the crops, and they, like the plants, and they, like the machines, help reproduce your body. You know, sometimes under the sun where their lips would crack and the sweat would move in between the creases, the people constantly were wrapped in sugar. The sugar would move around them, get stickier, get dry on them. They sometimes would have to go to the dogs to lick it off because they didn't have enough clean water. Anyway, sometimes under the sun, as if someone put out a cigarette in the sky, they were surrounded by the beautiful image of cotton candy, the colors, the sweetness. And it's interesting to note that the cotton candy somewhat resembled the clouds above as the sun was setting, full of many different hues and many different potential flavors of a dream. And it's also interesting to note the time that it rained and Jimmy got stuck covered in sugar. And they came out with knives, and they came out with shards of glass to cut him free, and his body ended up with scars like winces and squints. All right, side note. So I think it's an important thing to note that the people in these fields, they also had dreams. Now, let me tell you a bit about these dreams. In the beginning of the universe, there was nothing, right? I mean, most people agree that there was nothing. Or people who are more scientific, maybe think that there were interdimensional like sheets of energy that maybe bounced against each other and created an immense release of energy. But regardless of what it was, there was something that was relatively like nothing or completely unknown to us. Or in Genesis, how God made light, there was light to see more nothing. Or in a deeper reading of Genesis, there was seas, dark seas, indecipherable. Anyway, there were indecipherable things, and there was something, limitless light, or limitless energy. And let's say you had a huge calculator, and you took all of that energy in, and you made a bunch of calculations. You could not predict that matter would emerge. But let's say it did, and it did. And after trillions of years, you had all the calculations of matter, all the kinds of matter, a flux of matter, and suddenly something like life appears out of nowhere. A complete shock to the universe, life. And then, with all the variations of life, unicellular organisms, multicellular organisms, animals, insects, fungi, all those calculations, and you couldn't predict consciousness emerging. And here we are now, today, all of our machines, all of our imagination made manifest, all the things we could possibly want and desire and create. And still, there's a possibility of something new happening, something like justice, never before seen in the world, but could maybe one day appear. And justice, true justice, is not just for the living, but would also be for the dead. And with this dream, which is a wager, because just as likely as something like justice appearing is a chance that things could be the same forever. So slowly people eventually moved out of these fields. Some entered into the world of the maroon settlements all around New Orleans. The water would come in. No one wanted to go into the swamp. They went into the swamp. The laws of the land were the laws of the land, not the laws of the in-between. Part sea, part earth. They hid in the shadows. They would come out, they would sell cypress, they would sell woodwork. They were very skilled. People needed cypress. But people also didn't want slaves to run away. And there was blood, of course. Other people, they went into the world of the dreams, in the shadow, between the crops, somewhere between knowing and unknowing. They remain a haunted memory. This is why I think about them now, in fields of cotton candy. Still others took a different route, being closer to plants, being closer to animals and machines, became like animals themselves. And they haunted the living. But that's enough about them. Let's talk about me. I worked at a candy shop. I would sweep the candy shop. Sometimes the kids would come in and they'd be in the window and they'd be licking the windows as if the window was made of sugar because they're stupid, because they're children. And they'd be licking these windows and I have to clean those windows. And of course I hate the children because they're messy. And I think they steal the candy and I can't prove it. The little fingers are so fast. And anyway, they come into this candy shop where I work and I'm sweeping the floors because that's the kind of job I can get. And they come in and they get the taffy and they get the licorice and they're just like all over all the candy and I have to watch them. But I can't do anything about it, no matter what. You see, kids, they start off so innocent and pure. They're freshwater kids, like water who comes from the sky and its infinite grace. They're clean and pure, but you know that you can tell a tree by the fruit. And of course, those kids are gonna get rotten. They're gonna get rotten real quick. And anyway, they always want the cotton candy. And I understand why they want the cotton candy. It looks like a cloud, and clouds move over all borders. It's unattached. It is completely changing in its form. It's a complete miracle, and it just dissolves in your mouth. You desire something, you have it, and then it disappears as readily as it has appeared. It's a miracle. And it rots your teeth. And I hate these kids. And they run through the shop, and I can't help but to think back to the fields. But maybe I'm just overthinking things. I mean, there's plenty of other things that they can eat though, right? I mean, it's not like anyone suffers from chocolate. It's not like anyone suffers from sugar canes. It's not like anyone suffers from tobacco. It's not like anyone suffers from opium. It's not like anyone suffers from wearing adornments made of diamonds or gems. It's not like they can use phones free of any. Sometimes I feel like I'm home, being held hostage in a world of things. But enough talking about the past. Let's talk about something else. I don't know. Oh, all right, I know. So there's this restaurant, right? And the food's good. When I say the food's good, the food's great. I mean, they're serving mac and cheese and yams and greens, and they make their own aioli, and it's like, what else do they have? What do they have at this restaurant? Fish. Oh, so many kinds of fish. I can't even name the kinds of fish. Huge fish, small fish, in between fish that are like medium sized. But they're all good, and it's so good that people are licking the plates. They just can't get enough. Tell me about it. Tell me how good it is.
It's so good. The dishwasher could go home. I can lick all the food off the plate.
What? What? The dishwasher can. Well, then bye.
Oh, okay.
No, just lick it clean. I'm done.
I got it.
Oh, the light's fucking bright. The sun is just watching me.
Brighter days will come. Oh, the sun will shine and the rain will stop pouring. I never knew that it could change. No. Till I finally decided to move forward. Hey, yeah. I waited for my love to change, and I just sat there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. But until my feet started moving, no, I wasn't going nowhere. I had to run, I had to fight, I had to push with all my might. Yeah, I said run, child, run, child, run, child, run to the sun. Oh, I said run, child, run, child, run to the sun.
Some people wear suits, and you know the world's ending because of people who wear suits. But no one suspects them. They suspect me. The world's not ending because of me, I can tell you that much. But then they see me, and all they can see is the wolf. Like, I'm not the one robbing the resources in the world. I'm not the one that's putting whole people out of work or into work that kills them. It's not me. But they see me. And I'm the wolf. And then I end up in... Let me tell you a story. So, I'm biking. And I'm dressed up like Laura Croft because it's Halloween. And Laura's awesome. And, you know, I'm a little Tomb Raider, just like riding around. And then this car pulls up next to me. And then there's these two guys, right? And one is smoking a blunt. So it's just like a blur. His face is just smoke. And the other one, he has these gold rimmed glasses and gold teeth to match and gold rings on his finger. And he rolls the window down. And he looks at me. And I'm like, okay. And I look the other way, and then he leans in. And I look back at him because we're at a red light, and I respect traffic laws. And he says, you know, my sister's a Girl Scout. Me, being Tomb Raider, who is not a Girl Scout. Tomb Raider shoots people, snakes. And I'm like, all right. And I'm just ready to go. And then he leans in closer, and he's like, you got any cookies? And I do not have any cookies. All right, I have a few cookies on me, honestly, because I love cookies. I have a little bit of a sugar tooth, but he's not getting those cookies. Those are my cookies, all right? I just happen to be Girl Scout cookies, all right? Those are the best cookies in the world. I don't know how they do it. And I'm like, no, dude. And then I bike off, right? And then I'm going, and I'm like, this is a weird day. And then the lights. And then they pull me over. And I'm thinking, I gotta get to a party, all right? It's a potluck, and I have several types of salad, because I don't know what kind of salad to bring to a potluck. There's so many types. And I have to figure out which dressing to get also, so I bought all the salads and all the dressing, and I need to combine them kind of beforehand, because people love salad. It's like a great use of like calories or whatever, and it's just like, you know, like, I don't know, it's just too much. And I'm waiting for this potluck already, and then they're coming, and then they're doing the thing, and they're like running the check on my bicycle. And then they come up to me, and like, we need ID. And I'm like, I don't have my ID because I'm dressed up like Laura Croft, all right? Like, I don't even look like me, looking like this. So I said, they don't have it. I'm sorry. And they're like, that's fine. Bring out the scanner. So they bring out this like Game Boy sized scanner. And it's supposed to scan for faces. And they're like, I'm gonna have to put your face in the scanner. And I'm like, my face, what? My face can't fit in that scanner. It's like a box. And they're like, I'm not gonna repeat myself. And I'm like, all right, well, now how this works. So I push my face through the scanner, but I can't take it out. So I have to keep pushing through, and I have to get my shoulder in it, my other shoulder, my rib, and like wiggle on down, get my hips, my knees, my ankles all through it. And I know what you're thinking, this can't be a true story because a person cannot fit through such a small hole. And my response is, why does my back still hurt then? Anyway, it brings something up because there's just something about algorithms, right? Algorithms are racist. Now, you might not think so, but I personally also have a bias against machine. I mean, think back to The Field. As soon as they brought the machines in that could do the work, they got rid of all the workers, the sharecroppers. And what happened? They had nowhere to go. There was a great migration into the cities. Cities that were poisoned. You know, there's something about being the wolf. In order to understand this, let's take a trip into linguistic theory. Let's look at Saussure and the signified and the signifier. And the signifier emanates a word, and the signified receives the word, it becomes it. And there's this communication that's also a reflection. The signified represents the real, the material, the solid, the understood. It is always the other of the signifier. If there were no black people in the world, they would be invented. You know, back in Ancient Rome, they created this division between the subject and the object. The subject was the citizen, the actor. The object was anyone else, anything else. It could be your wife, it could be your servant, it could be your cattle, it could be the actual things that you owned. And as we move forward in time and through Western thought, we have the division between subject and object everywhere. It is as essential as up and down, as left and right, as black and white. And one is always better than the other. One is always more like the subject than the other. And then I become the wolf. And if there were no black people, they would be invented to be the other half. It's a cycle. So when I say machines are racist, because they're developed in a racist world. You know, medical algorithms, people die because they just discriminate on race. It's the same as with algorithms that qualify you for a loan. If you grew up in an area with other people who maybe defaulted on a loan or had bad credit, it says you were like them. And so you end up not being able to get a chance because there's just so much information. They need to make it simple. They need to communicate. Same thing with algorithms for sentencing. If you're being sentenced for a crime, they look at the chance of you recommitting that crime through algorithms. Other people like you, even in search engines, people like you. What comes up? What's likely to come up? What are you likely to see? What are they likely to show you from what people think you are like? Even in facial recognition, they scan your face and already, if they even catch your face, you're more likely to look like someone else. Doesn't matter if you're rich, doesn't matter if you're a senator, your face just happens to look like the face of someone in a mugshot. It's happened. And so that scanner scans me, my face becomes another face, and then they put me at the ground. And on the ground I can see a puddle. And in this puddle, I see a different world. Because that's the thing about mirrors. We live in a world full of glass everywhere. It creates the illusion of seeing through something, but really you're just looking at a wall. And sometimes the wall has the thinnest reflection of you in it, but it's still a wall. It's so frustrating, the idea of transparency when there's no transparency to be found. I look into this puddle, and this puddle is a different world. It's a pure world. It's a world that reflects a world without noise. I look into this puddle and I see something different. I want to touch it. I want to enter into this world, this peaceful world. But every time I touch it, there are ripples everywhere, and the images, they just fall apart. Sometimes I see a face in this puddle, and this face looks like mine. And I'm like, if that guy's in the puddle, then I can be in the puddle. And then I get closer to it, and then that face also disappears. And I wonder if that face is really that different from me. That maybe that face also doesn't belong in the puddle, or maybe they sneaked in. But regardless, it's not made for me. There's a place made for me. There's a place made for me. And that that's where I'm going. Did you know one of the largest, if not the largest prison in the world, and a state that has the largest incarceration in the world, Angola, which used to be a plantation. My uncle's still there. And anyway, in this place, let's say they put me there after this incident because I resemble someone else. And in this place of walls, someone has snuck in a comic book. And we read this comic book. And it's a mysterious comic book. And the story of this comic book, well, very refreshing part. In this comic book, there's an underwater archaeologist.
And as we all know, underwater archaeologists are the rock stars of the archaeology world. Because who doesn't want to find buried treasure in the water? And anyway, they're on their ship, right? And suddenly, they sense that something is beneath them. And they fall out and they go deep, deep underwater. And they find it. And under the water, they get trapped because something falls on them. And they can't get free. They start being desperate. And they realize, from history class, that there's so many bones in the ocean because of people who were thrown off of ships, or eaten by sharks. They prayed that sharks have found a way to come in. And the baby sharks are coming for them. But what he did not realize is that those bones also created a pathway for ancestors to move to this world. And so he prays, he calls the ancestors for help, and here they come. And they give him superpowers. This is coming. And then suddenly he can see through walls, he can teleport, he has the ability to summon things.
There's one spirit, she gives him a task. She says, we want you to summon the ghosts